Well, it's super windy out today, and I've got my coffee. Yes, I drink coffee. I do drink tea though, but coffee today. And it's been on my mind to talk about this concept of what is colonization today, because when it comes to ancestral trauma and historical trauma, it is a multi-layered process, and each layer has its own display of symptoms of the community. So while there's things that are individual within the individual people of the community, there's things that get displayed at whole. And one of the things that I see quite obtusely, I guess, for lack of a better word, is the concept of othering and self-hatred. And honestly, I feel like this is the last stage of colonization, because the final stage of that is self-annihilation. So no longer existing as a culture or community at all. It's gone. And the concept of othering really comes into play, well, with the tribes here in the US. It comes into play with that there's natives that grow up on the reservation and there's natives that grow up off the reservation. And so the natives that grow up on the reservation then other the natives that grow up off the reservation. But unfortunately, there's 87% of the people now live off the res, right? And I said in a video the other day that I feel like Ireland is like 200 years ahead or 150 years ahead of the colonization of here, as far as the stage in which they're going through. And although you can't look at it as like a directly, apples to apples comparison, the basic undercurrents of things are the same, right? They're the same. And so there gets to be, and then that othering like comes up on these macro levels too, where there's those that are Christian and those that are still traditional. There's those that have, mixed with other races and people, and those that have not. And so there are those that are enrolled and then those that are not. So there gets to be this fighting within. And I see the same thing with Irish people. And so where does that othering and self-hatred show up? Well, and that's why I say this is the final stage of colonization, because it is the seed that festers within, and ends up perpetuating that self-annihilation. I can't even talk. So, what you start to see is that self-hatred comes up with the Irish in skin color, right? And it's like, oh, it's like, Adam and Eve realizing they don't have clothes on. It's like, oh God, we're light-skinned, right? But that's also a part of the lie. It's a part of the lie. When, you start to look at genetic analysis, right? There's the Irish people, that kind of like origin tribe, shall we say, was dark. They were dark-skinned, right? And then we had different influxes of invasions over time. Our history is about invasion, assimilation, and those that don't get the fuck off, right? Get the fuck out. But in time, that changes appearance. And, I see the same thing in the Native people here, where, a perfect example is I know two different people, two different couples who are visually clearly Native, and they have children that are very fair with like purple, violet, blue eyes and, reddish blonde hair. So, so does that mean that they should, hate themselves because of that? Because somewhere in the line there was, on both sides, there was someone that was fair with blue eyes and, strawberry blonde hair. That doesn't make any sense, right? And so what comes up in that is that othering and self-hatred. And, so that's what I see with the Irish people today, is this self-hatred of just the way they look, right? And thinking that if you want to preserve Indigenous Irish and Indigenous Irish culture, that immediately sends people on this vitriol of that must mean that you hate everyone else. And that's just not true. I mean, even in my own family, my grandmother, who's nothing but Irish all the way back, had black hair, very dark brown skin, and black brown eyes, right? And then my grandfather, his mother was also had that coloring. And so, and then on my dad's side, the Irish ancestors in that, same thing. My great grandmother was dark skinned Irish through and through, and her husband was not, so I think there's always been, it's not just that you look one certain way. I think there's always been that mix. And so this belief that now this self-hatred has to be there is a colonizer's thought process. It's a colonizer's thought process. And it's something that the people have taken on as their own, and it is not. It's a part of the process to get to the point of hating yourself. So that also plays out not just in placing value on skin color, right? And I get it, because colonizers and people that have done horrible things, sorry to say, but they were, British and German. So, of course there's the Spanish and the Portuguese have done their things too and all of that. I'm not saying that, but that's where that idea that skin color equals bad comes from, colonizers, right? And the Irish people are not colonizers. I would say it's quite the opposite, wouldn't you? So, it's almost comical, right, for the Irish people to take on that colonizer mindset, because it couldn't be further from the nature of the people. And then that also comes from, a displaced concept of what our history is. And my last point in that is exactly why someone that is one of my brothers and sisters in Ireland would look at me and say, well, she's not even real Irish, right? So there's that concept of othering once again in the real Irish versus fake Irish. And the uncomfortable truth is that I also am Irish. I'm ethnically Irish, and so are you. And the truth is that this is the same concept that I was talking about earlier, where 87% of the Native people today in the US are not living on the reservation, they're living off the reservation. And does that make them less Native than the people on the reservation? No, it doesn't. What it does is it's a result of a break in the community, which was by design. And so looking at the Irish that left as now being fake Irish, and the ones that stayed as now being real Irish, is exactly the same. It's exactly the same. The blood that burns through me is the same blood that burns through you. And to say that the Irish diaspora are fake is a form of erasure. And it's not a reflection of reality, and it's not a reflection of the true nature and heart of our people. So I hope that you got something out of what I'm sharing with you today. This isn't about race or racism. It's about othering and self-hatred, which is another layer of colonization. So I hope that that brings you to a place of self-reflection, and be sure to like and follow for more.